Hello there, and welcome to the Dreamy Scientist, where curiosity gets cozy and science takes the scenic route to slumber. Tonight's gentle journey takes us into the strange and slippery concept we all live by, but may have entirely made up: time. Is it something real, ticking through the universe like a cosmic heartbeat? Or did we invent it, this system of hours and minutes, to make sense of our days, our aging, our place in the world? Could time be nothing more than an illusion we've agreed to believe in? But before we unravel this beautifully baffling idea, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? Rather fitting, isn't it? A video about time. And here we are, scattered across time zones, yet arriving at this very moment together. If this gentle voyage feels soothing, thought-provoking, or just a calm way to end your day, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave the video a like, and maybe subscribed. It helps this little corner of calm reach others who might need a peaceful pause too. Now, I do hope this topic doesn't keep you too awake, but if it does, at least you'll be wide-eyed thinking about one of the most curious questions in the universe. So, settle in, slow your thoughts, and let's begin. You settle into the quiet like a feather drifting through dusk, letting the warmth of blankets cradle your limbs until edge and outline soften. Somewhere beneath your ribs, a muffled drum begins its patient recital. Lub-dub, lub-dub, unbidden, unfailing. You scarcely notice it, yet it shapes every instant of the evening. While thought wanders toward dream, the hidden drummer lays down the first soft measure of tonight's song, counting not in seconds but in tender pushes of blood, each one a cradle-rock urging you deeper into rest. Long before you opened your eyes to light, this pattern was already rehearsing, setting the tempo for fingers yet to unfurl and lungs yet to taste air. Tonight it returns like an old lullaby, steady enough to trust, subtle enough to vanish the moment you stop listening. So you drift, riding each contraction as though it were a slow oar stroke across a dark and glassy lake. Before you were you, before skin, eyelashes and laughter, you floated in warm amniotic twilight. There the sound of time was twin-fold, your mother's heavier thud and your own quick patter, two metronomes entwined like dancers who never see each other's faces. In that private ocean, a tiny duct guided blood through chambers that would soon seal forever, and the heart practiced its quiet percussion, rehearsing for daylight's unveiling. Even then, the beat shifted with your gentle kicks, slowing when you paused, racing when you stretched, as though curiosity had already begun to tug at its silk strings. No calendar marked those hidden weeks, only the rise and fall of nutrient tides, only the murmur of shared circulation, only the mounting promise that rhythm would soon meet breath and claim the title of time. And while the outside world spun through seasons, auroras painting skies you had never seen, your cocoon measured duration not in sunsets but in heartbeats, each one a soft signature on the blank page of becoming. Now, years later, you lie still and feel how the beat has mellowed, cured like cedar beneath slow sunlight. It is no longer the hummingbird flutter of infancy, nor the tempest of teenage afternoons spent sprinting after impossible horizons. Instead, it is a seasoned traveller's stride, confident, unhurried, aware that distance is conquered not by haste but by steadiness. Each contraction squeezes life warmth into capillaries at your toes and fingertips, sending a quiet signal that every cell may proceed with its nightly revision, Muscles knit microtears, neurons archive memories, hormones whisper their instructions along winding corridors. Beneath the audible thump you sense an even subtler rhythm, the whir of sodium and potassium sliding through microscopic gates, ion by ion, shaping an electrical snowstorm whose flakes land in perfect time. Were you small enough to wander your own myocardial fibers, you would see a stadium wave of charged light rippling from cell to cell, a luminous hush-fire racing paths worn smooth by a lifetime of repetition, telling stories in sparks. The spark itself begins in a lantern-bright cluster of pacemaker cells called the sinoatrial node, perched high in the right atrium like a bell in a cathedral loft. Delicate yet irrepressible, these cells generate tiny electrical applauses all their own, a spontaneous ovation that never waits for cue or conductor. Bathed in plasma, sensitive to temperature, adrenaline, and the chemistry of emotion, they ask a single question every fraction of a heartbeat. Ready? 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 Neighboring tissue answers with a surge. The message cascades downward until ventricles clench like fists closing on invisible gifts. 100,000 times each day this silent conversation repeats, teaching the body what moment it currently inhabits. Translated into words, each pulse might chant, "Here is now, here is now, here is now," a mantra so persistent it erases the need for any clock on the wall, for the wall itself is built of beating cells. Picture your heart as a lone drummer seated at the base of a vast amphitheatre. Every organ is an audience, and each thud is a cue to breathe, digest, repair, dream. Kidneys keep tempo. The liver remixes nutrients in syncopation. The skin widens or narrows its capillaries in time with heat and beat. Occasionally the drummer improvises, speeding up when laughter shakes your ribs, slowing when grief lays its heavy shawl across your shoulders. Yet even improvisation returns to motif, because chaos without cadence would silence the concert entirely. Imagine the emptiness that would follow if the sticks were set aside. How organs would glance at one another, unsure whether to start a solo or wait. Tonight the rhythm holds, patient as moonlight, courteous as a familiar footstep at the door, and you are free to breathe inside that certainty. Notice how each inhalation nudges the tempo upward, a subtle accelerando, while each exhalation coaxes it back, the conductor easing the strings into largo. This dance, respiratory sinus arrhythmia, sounds clinical but feels like a lullaby, the intimate coupling of wind and drum. When you breathe deeply, you invite the drummer to quicken. As breath leaves, you grant permission to slow. Each sigh becomes a negotiation with time, a little faster here, a little slower there, until the average of those bargains becomes the feeling called calm. Think of monks chanting in caves, of oceans drawing shoreward and retreating, of sleepers unconsciously counting sheep, all reflections of this shared choreography. Perhaps that is why deliberate breathing can soften anxiety. It gives you conversational access to the body's clockmaker, sliding the metronome weight one notch closer to serenity. Farther along the arterial highway, tiny pressure sensors called baroreceptors watch from vascular walls like lantern-eyed sentinels. They taste the swell and ebb of blood with every beat and send swift telegrams to the brainstem. If pressure drops because you rise too quickly or laughter steals your breath, they urge the heart to drum faster, harder, ensuring consciousness stays lit like a candle that refuses to be snuffed. If pressure rises because you sink into warm water or sudden peace, the drummer's hands soften. Thousands of such micro-conversations overlap in a nocturnal hive beneath perception. Place 2 fingers at your wrist. You may detect the minute stutters and leaps that reveal just how responsive this inner timekeeper truly is. Yet the heart is not the only keeper of time. High in the brain, near the crossing of optic nerves, the suprachiasmatic nucleus samples daylight's colour, compares it with yesterday, and tunes hormones accordingly. At dawn, cortisol rises like a gentle trumpet, stirring heart rate from its midnight lull. At dusk, melatonin drifts through bloodstreams, bidding the drummer slow. When you travel across time zones or linger past midnight's curtain call, you feel misalignment, a circadian jet lag where the drummer keeps old time while the conductor begs for new tempo. Eventually, light and chemistry realign, and you rediscover that accord between cosmic and corporal clocks, a symphony tuned by photons. Cast your mind back to infancy. Your heart raced at more than 130 beats per minute, a hummingbird caged beneath soft bone. Such speed was necessity, not anxiety. Small hearts hold small volumes, so they flutter swiftly to feed a budding body. With growth the pace slackened, descending stair by stair like a child tiptoeing from attic to kitchen at night. You may remember the thump in your ears after recess, or the echo in your temples when first love painted heat across your cheeks. Moments when heart and feeling seemed indistinguishable. Those lessons taught that time can sprint or stroll according to emotion, that biological clocks listen not merely to oxygen debt, but to stories, hope, fear. Adolescence ushered in its own symphonic upheaval. Hormones flooded corridors like new musicians vying for solo parts, and tempo lurched from allegro to adagio without warning. Nights of excitement made sleep impossible, each heartbeat a cymbal crash against ribs forged in sudden growth. Science calls this sympathetic dominance. Poets call it yearning. The drummer obliged, pressing faster, imprinting unforgettable hours that felt eternal while they passed yet vanished in hindsight. Though those hours may now seem reckless or awkward, they trained the pacemaker's repertoire, ensuring it could summon thunder or whisper at will. In adulthood, the drummer often adopts a craftsman's patience. Steady days in gardens or offices, conversations over coffee, slow walks with friends shape a resting tempo, hovering like a gull on coastal updrafts, neither frantic nor lethargic. Regular movement, laughter, and companionship coax the heart toward efficient cadence, while chronic stress can squeeze beats closer until they feel like pleading. Even now, lying still, you sense whether today's tempo is too brisk or too slow. Your pulse answers candidly, providing a barometer more intimate than any wearable device. If its answer requests change, tomorrow offers a new measure in which to revise the score. Consider the moments you move with intent, running beneath trees, swimming through water thick as moonlight, cycling into sunrise. Muscles summon oxygen like revelers calling for more music, and the heart swells its tempo to meet demand. Stroke volume increases, arteries widen, every thud sends bolder surges outward. Afterward, in cooling hush, the drummer slows beyond its earlier baseline, grateful to rest, proud of the concerto performed. This post-exercise lull, vagal rebound, is resilience in disguise, proof that each deliberate challenge teaches the heart to do more with less, widening the interval between beats and granting you calmer seconds in which to exist. Age arrives quietly, the way twilight seeps into afternoon. The heart's walls may thicken, valves may stiffen. Electrical pathways may detour around microscopic scars, yet the drummer persists, shifting technique and finding leverage in wisdom. Resting rate might drift, but vitality hides in variability, the capacity to race for laughter and slow for lullabies. Flexible rhythm is youthful rhythm, regardless of chronology. Studies of centenarians reveal hearts that still know the dance between sympathetic surge and parasympathetic calm. Place a hand to your chest. Even if cadence feels rougher than decades ago, beneath that texture lies resilience earned through storms weathered, losses grieved, joys celebrated. Each scarred fibre is a musician who has learned harmony after dissonance, and the concert continues, tempered, unwavering. Follow now a single packet of blood as it exits the left ventricle, a swift crimson comet shot into the aorta. In less time than a firefly's blink, it splits into branches, flows past kidneys that sift stories of salt and water, leaps through arteries arching like willow roots beneath skin, curls into capillary beds where oxygen unlaces from hemoglobin and slips across cell membranes. The mitochondria ignite tiny furnaces trading oxygen for energy, exhaling carbon dioxide back into the stream. The packet rejoins darker currents, slides through veins, passes valves fluttering like curtains, returns to the right atrium and pauses, a traveller presenting its passport before the lungs grant renewal. All of this completes in about a minute, another tacit metric of time defined not by clocks but by circulation. Close your eyes and you may sense that minute, warmth sliding through extremities, hush descending as cells are fed, a whisper rising as waste is carried away. Beneath these mechanical feats lies electricity, a language swift and silent. Action potentials race along Purkinje fibers, darting through septal walls, ensuring each ventricle contracts from apex upward, like squeezing a tube of paint so none is wasted. The choreography is so reliable that physicians translate it into peaks and valleys on electrocardiograms, tiny mountain ranges mapping the terrain of your hidden country. Even now, phosphorescent waves could be dancing across a monitor somewhere, echoing your heartbeat in green light, a night lantern for watchful caregivers, and if you watched, you might feel awe, electric snow whispering that life is at once fragile and fiercely steadfast. All these layers, drum, breath, pressure, light, spark, compose nested clocks guiding you through every day without announcing themselves. Time, at this intimate scale, is not the distant tick of a wall clock, but the flex of myocardium, the swirl of plasma, the flicker of ions, the hush rush, rocking you like gentle surf. Perhaps that is why, when you rest your head on a loved one's chest, their heartbeat steadies yours, two clocks negotiating until they nearly synchronize. Researchers call this entrainment. You may simply call it belonging. So here you lie, cradled by your own percussion, each beat polishing the seconds like smooth river stones. Somewhere beyond the window, a sliver of moon slides across the glass, pulling faint silver over floorboards. Shadows lengthen, then retreat, as if the night itself were breathing. You wonder, if rhythm can mark all these inner moments, what of the rhythms written in shadow and light beyond your skin? What of the sundial waiting for dawn, the ancient dance of earth and sun drawing time upon stone? Drift on that question. The heartbeat softens, the mind loosens, and somewhere in the dark a single shadow begins to turn, already measuring tomorrow, and just beyond your window, where the moon once lingered, a paler light begins to spill across the sky, tentative and diffused. You can't see the sun yet, not truly, not its crown nor its radiant arms, but you can sense its slow arrival in the gently dark, like warm breath behind a curtain. The floor glows faintly now, and somewhere in the garden or on an old rooftop or in the stone of a forgotten plaza, a shadow begins to form. It stretches thin at first, as if unsure of its own existence, a delicate smear of night retreating from the inevitable swell of gold. This is where the next kind of time begins, not from within your chest, but from the sky itself. And for thousands of years, humans have watched the dance of these early shadows to understand when to rise, when to sow, when to pray. Before clocks, before calendars, before glass hands behind ticking glass, there was only sunlight and the way it changed. The earliest timekeepers did not wear watches. They watched the ground. They tracked how their own shadows moved, how they grew long and thin in the morning, how they curled and huddled beneath them at noon, how they stretched again in the hush of evening. These shadows became silent storytellers, whispering to shepherds and sailors, farmers and dreamers alike, now, now, now. And so they carved tall sticks into earth, stood stones in circles, etched arcs into bronze and clay. They made sundials, simple tools, yet deeply reverent. Because to watch a shadow move is to witness the planet turning beneath your feet, to remember that time is not just passing within you, but around you, drawn by light. Picture yourself in an ancient courtyard at dawn. The air is cool and smells faintly of stone dust and dew. A tall gnomon, a pole or obelisk, rises from a flat stone disc marked with radial lines like the petals of a stone flower. As the sun lifts her head, the shadow cast by the gnomon begins to drift, almost imperceptibly, crossing each carved hour line like the slow hand of a sleeping clock. But there is no ticking, no urgency, only the glide of time in silence. You place your palm upon the stone and feel its chill. This was once how temples welcomed the morning, how workers knew to begin their labours, how children learned the sky's rhythm long before they knew the words for time. In that stillness, you begin to sense the earth itself turning, not in a rush, not in a blur, but with the patient dignity of something ancient and certain. It is not the sun that moves across the sky. It is you, all of you, spinning toward the light. One full turn every 24 hours, your body rotating eastward at hundreds of meters per second, and yet you feel no wind, no whir. You simply see the sun rise, the shadow shift, the light change hue. And this illusion of the sun's motion becomes the way you understand time, by how things change in its presence. Plants open, petals yawn, birds stir, your eyelids lift. It is not the number that wakes you, it is the angle of light on your skin. Sundials remind us that time was once visible, external and slow. A moving shadow does not rush. It does not chase or flee. It does not divide the day into meetings or alarms. It simply slides. Noon is when the shadow hides. Morning is when it points west. Evening is when it stretches eastward again, a thin arm reaching into dusk. And this rhythm is not mechanical. It's celestial. It depends on your latitude, on the tilt of Earth's axis, on the way the planet wobbles slightly as it dances its ellipse around the sun. These slow, invisible mechanics make every sundial local, personal. A sundial in Egypt whispers a different tempo than one in Iceland, and yet they all agree on one thing. The day is marked not by numbers, but by light. You step forward in this imaginary garden, and you see how some ancient sundials were not even dials at all. Some were entire buildings, designed to let light fall through openings only at certain times of year. In Newgrange, Ireland, a stone passageway aligns perfectly with the winter solstice sunrise. Once a year, golden light floods the chamber just for minutes. In that burst of brilliance, time announces itself as something sacred, cyclical, and beautiful. Not a deadline, but a return. Not a race, but a reminder. Even now we mark solstices and equinoxes, not with watches, but with celebration, proof that somewhere inside us we still listen to light. But sundials have their quirks. On cloudy days they vanish into uncertainty. Their markings assume a perfect solar year. Yet Earth's orbit is not a circle, and so time drifts. Eventually we had to add corrections, make allowances, leap days, equation of time charts, even adjusting our calendars centuries later, so that seasons didn't wander too far from their rightful months. The Julian calendar gave way to the Gregorian, all because shadows didn't quite match the math. But perhaps that's what makes sundials so soothing. They're not perfect. They are honest. They remind you that time, in its earliest form, was flexible. It bent with light. It softened with weather. It paused for clouds. You were meant to observe it, not obey it. Even in their fading relevance, sundials linger as poetry. You've seen them in old parks and stone gardens, covered in moss, a bronze triangle still standing boldly under the sky. Look closer, and you'll find their quiet inscriptions. I mark only sunny hours, or time passes but friendship remains. Some simply say, tempus fugit, time flies, and yet they do not fly. They wait, they do not chase you. They offer their slow shadow as a gift, a gentle reminder that the day is unfolding without you needing to do anything more than notice. Now, return to your own breath, your own room. You imagine placing a sundial on your windowsill tomorrow morning, not to tell time precisely, but to watch how the light touches it, how the seasons angle the beam differently each month. Perhaps it becomes your quiet ritual, to see where the shadow falls and pause for a moment, measuring not your productivity but your presence. The sundial becomes not a tool, but a companion, a witness to your mornings. Its silence a soft balm against a clamour of schedules. As your thoughts drift, you begin to see time as twofold: the inner rhythm of your body, your heartbeat, your breath, and the outer sweep of light and shadow across the land. One is intimate, pulsing in your chest. The other is cosmic, drawn by the sun's path across space. They move together like two melodies, intertwining, layering meaning over your days. And you are the bridge, the being who carries both clocks, who feels both kinds of time pressing gently against your skin. What then happens when night comes and the sundial sleeps? When the shadow dissolves into darkness and time must be measured by stars? What celestial patterns guide you when light is gone? When shadows can no longer stretch, but only vanish? When shadows finally vanish into the velvet of night, you are left with something else, an older kind of clock, more mysterious and more profound. No more does the sun sketch time across stone. Now it is the stars that shimmer above you, delicate as breath on glass, each one a pinprick in the dome of the cosmos. Time, here, moves differently. There is no ticking, no counting. Only the slow drift of constellations and the almost imperceptible glide of planets along invisible tracks. But even this sky, with its ancient patterns, feels less like a calendar than something else entirely. A river. Not a still pool of stars, but a current, moving gently, endlessly, never circling back. Close your eyes and imagine that river. It winds through a forest heavy with night air, moonlight caught on its surface like strands of silver thread. You kneel beside it, your hand brushing the cold edge. The water rushes past, soft but certain, carrying leaves, light, fragments of sky. You cup your palm and catch some of it, but before you can raise it to your lips, the droplets have already slid through your fingers. That moment, that exact current, is gone. Never again will that water touch your skin. This is time, Heraclitus once said. You cannot step into the same river twice, because the river changes, and so do you. Each breath you take is a current that moves you forward. Each thought, each blink, each pulse of your heart is a ripple in the stream. Even now, as you lie still in the softness of sleep's approach, you are floating forward. Not by choice, not by force, but by nature. You cannot freeze this moment or return to the one before it. The river won't allow it. And yet, this flow is not frightening. It is quiet, soothing, eternal. It carries you gently through memories, through dreams, through each unfolding second of your life, wrapping you in its slow motion. Think of how rivers shape the land. Over centuries, water-carved stone creates valleys, sculpts canyons, and time does the same to you. It softens sharp edges, it deepens certain places, it wears away what no longer serves, not always with drama or noise, often with silence, with the patience of years. Look back gently, and you can see the channels time has carved in you, the lessons etched in old laughter, the small losses that shaped your tenderness, the slow growth of your thoughts like moss blooming on river stones. This isn't decay. This is design. The flow is making you. Even your memories, the way they return, soften, reshape, are proof of this motion. You may revisit a childhood moment and find it changed, not in its facts, but in its feeling. The river has touched it. Maybe a once painful moment feels gentler now, or a long ago joy grows more luminous in the rear view of your becoming. Time doesn't let you retrieve the original water, but it does allow you to reflect upon the way it moved. Memory becomes a glint on the surface, fleeting, shimmering, never solid, yet deeply real. Science too recognizes the river. Entropy, the gradual drift from order to disorder, is time's signature on the universe. A teacup falls and shatters, a leaf crumbles, ice melts into water. The arrow of time, physicists call it, always points forward, never back. This arrow is not cruel, it is natural. It allows evolution, healing, change, and like the river, entropy moves slowly in some places, swiftly in others. It's why your childhood felt endless, while adulthood rushes. The brain changes its perception as the stream widens. You may wonder, if the river never repeats, how do we measure it? We've tried. Hours, minutes, seconds, all attempts to put banks on the current. But the body resists such neat divisions. There are days that pass in a blink, and minutes that stretch like dusk in winter. Time bends inside you. Not because it changes, but because perception flows differently depending on emotion, attention, presence. A river watched closely feels longer. A river crossed unconsciously vanishes beneath the feet. And yet, just as in a river, there are eddies, still places, pockets of calm that seem to pause time's passage. These moments don't last, but they offer something precious. Think of sitting under trees with someone you love, of watching light move across their face, of silence shared with depth. In such moments, the stream slows, not truly, but in feeling. You sense then that time is not always something to be measured. Sometimes it's something to be experienced, like a current washing over bare skin. You carry your own eddies too. Dreams, for example, suspend you outside the normal stream. In them, time stutters, rewinds, folds. You might live entire lives in one night's sleep. These aren't illusions, they're inner rivers. Their logic isn't linear, but emotional, symbolic. A scientist may say REM cycles follow predictable patterns, but you, the dreamer, feel the elasticity of experience, the strange truth that time is different depending on how your mind holds it. Even grief is a kind of eddy, a swirling where the river crashes against something it cannot carry. Time doesn't stop for sorrow, but it drags, heavy and slow. You ache not just for the absence, but for the moments you cannot re-enter. The river keeps flowing, but you feel caught in a whirlpool, spinning in the memory of a voice, a scent, a touch. Eventually the current gathers you again and brings you forward, but not untouched. Like river banks after flood, something inside you has shifted, and still, the flow is not aimless. It follows gravity, yes, but also landscape. Some days it rushes, some days it curls lazily around bends. And perhaps your own time is the same. Some years stretch, others leap. Some seasons are dense with events, others soft with space. You do not command the river, but you can float with awareness. That, perhaps, is the gift. Not control, but consciousness. Tonight, as you lie between thoughts and sleep, feel yourself as a leaf carried gently along this current. You're not lost, you're not late, you're not behind. You're exactly where the river has brought you. Around you, other leaves drift, some close, some far. All of you part of the same movement, flowing toward a horizon unseen but certain. And just as water carves stone, the river of time carves you, shaping your soul with curves only visible when you look back from far downstream. Now, listen, do you hear it? Not the sound of water, but the feeling of flow, the hush between seconds, the gentle pull forward. And as your thoughts begin to loosen, as your breathing slows, you wonder, if time is a river, what lies at its mouth? What ocean waits at the end of this quiet journey? So you drift downstream, still resting within the quiet pull of the river that never repeats, and slowly, slowly, you begin to wonder if there is a mouth to time's river, if there is some vast ocean at the end of all this motion. What does it look like? Is it silence? Is it a return? Or is it something else entirely, something immeasurable? You are not afraid to ask. You're curious, soft-eyed and still. And in that stillness another image rises. Not a river this time, but an hourglass. You've seen one before. 2 glass bulbs joined by a narrow neck, each grain of sand falling one by one, steady and precise. But this hourglass isn't on a desk or in a game. It is enormous, vast beyond comprehension. A cosmic hourglass, cradling galaxies in its chambers. You stand beside it, or perhaps within it, and watch the glittering dust trickle from the top into the waiting bottom. Each grain is a second, a moment, a heartbeat, a star's birth, a planet cooling. Time doesn't tumble in rushes here. It falls in singular drops of meaning, each one both precious and inevitable. This is the realm of entropy, the deep engine beneath all ticking clocks. Entropy is not decay, not destruction. It is the movement from order into something less structured, more dispersed. It is why a cup shatters when dropped but never reassembles, why warmth spreads from hot tea into cold air and never leaps back into the cup. It is the quiet law that governs change, not maliciously, but naturally. Each grain of sand that falls through the cosmic neck is a step in that one-way path. You don't feel it, not moment to moment, but entropy moves in everything around you. candle burns in its wax pools. Your own breath cools the air. Your thoughts flicker with activity, leaving tiny molecular trails of energy behind. Time, here, is not counted by clocks, but by the increase of possibility, of randomness. Scientists call this the arrow of time. It's not a suggestion, it's a direction. A universe always unfolding, stretching outward from simplicity into complexity, from symmetry into variation. But somehow, paradoxically, within this march toward greater disorder, life arises. You, your heart, your breath, your remembering mind are made of systems that temporarily hold order together. For a time, your cells resist the drift. You take in energy, organize it, create warmth, motion, thought. You are, for now, a delicate bubble of low entropy in a world gently falling apart. Not in panic, not in sadness, but in inevitability. And you shine precisely because you are temporary, like a sand mandala drawn in careful colours only to be brushed away when complete. The meaning is not lost in the fall, it is born of the fall. You may ask, why does time move forward, not backward? Why do we remember the past but not the future? The laws of physics, strangely, allow for both directions. Equations don't mind if time reverses, but entropy does. Entropy insists, forward. You remember yesterday because it was more ordered, because each moment afterward built upon it like cards placed one atop another. The future remains unwritten not because it's far away, but because the sand hasn't fallen yet. The upper chamber of the hourglass still holds grains, unformed, unshaped. And this hourglass, this cosmic timekeeper, isn't just philosophical, it plays out in stars. When a star forms, it is a miracle of order. Hydrogen fusing into helium, radiant pressure balancing against collapse. But even stars age. Their fuel dwindles, their cores shift. Eventually the star expands, cools and dies, sometimes in brilliance, sometimes in silence. Its matter spreads into space, enriching nebulae, seeding the next generation of stars. Time, in this context, is not just a measure of moments, but a story of transformation, of things changing because they must. Back here on Earth, the hourglass leaves traces in everyday things. In your cup of tea, cooling gently by your side, in the worn edge of a page turned too many times, in the softness of an old shirt that used to be crisp. Time doesn't only age you, it textures you. It makes things real, lived in, touched. We fear wear, but it is proof of movement, of having passed through something, of not remaining untouched by the miracle of living. Even your body carries this passage. The cells in your gut renew every few days. Your skin sheds and replaces itself. Your bones, the very frame of you, remake themselves slowly across years. And still there is change. A slow surrender to the pull of entropy. You wrinkle, you soften, you tire. But within that, you also remember, love, create. The sand may fall, but what you make with your time is the pattern left behind in the bottom bulb. And there's something else, something strange and beautiful. The more we look at entropy and time, the more we begin to question whether time is even a thing on its own, or simply the result of how energy and matter behave. Maybe there is no ticking clock behind the universe. Maybe time is what we feel when change happens. A kind of ghost trail left by movement, by contrast, by difference. Without change, there is no time. Without memory, no past. Without anticipation, no future. So you lie here, wrapped in warmth, watching this imagined hourglass. Each grain falls with a soundless hush, joining the growing mound below. But instead of anxiety, you feel comfort. There is no rushing. The fall is steady, predictable. Every second that passes brings you deeper into the present moment, where time isn't counted but felt. You feel the weight of your limbs, the softness of your breathing, the fading echo of thought. You are here. The sand falls, and yet you wonder still, if this hourglass holds time, who turned it over? Has it always been falling? Is there an end or another beginning waiting below? What happens when the last grain falls and the glass stands still? You lie there, still watching the final grains tumble through the hourglass in your mind, and the question gently echoes, what happens when the last grain falls? Is it still time when nothing changes? Is the silence after the last tick still part of the ticking? You don't know, but you feel it. The certainty that something only moves in one direction, something irreversible. And with that, a new image surfaces in your thoughts, as clear as a slow-motion memory. A smooth brown egg falling from your fingertips. It leaves your hand whole, uncracked, perfectly self-contained. It arches through the air and then shatters on the floor, yolk blooming like a sunrise in slow descent. You watch the pieces spread, the weights pooling like glassy clouds, the yellow center breaking open, lazy and golden. You kneel beside it. Try to fit the pieces back together. Try to lift the yolk without a smear. But it's no use. You could gather it, hold its memory, maybe even use the fragments in a new way, but you cannot unbreak the egg. This, scientists say, is time's arrow, the principle that certain things cannot be undone. That order becomes disorder. That once a moment is lived, it cannot be reversed. Not truly. In physics, this concept belongs to the second law of thermodynamics, an unflinching rule about how energy spreads. In simple terms, it tells you that the universe always moves from states of higher order to states of greater entropy. A perfume bottle opens and the scent spreads. You don't see it unspread. A warm coffee left untouched becomes cold. It doesn't suddenly warm itself. The pieces scatter and never leap back into place. This is more than just a rule. It's a direction, a current you cannot swim against. Time doesn't just move, it moves forward. And yet, the microscopic laws of the universe, those that govern individual atoms, don't care about direction. At that scale, time can run backward or forward in equations, and nothing breaks. Particles dance in ways that allow reversibility, but when those atoms come together, into stars, people, eggs, the behavior changes. Suddenly, the sequence matters. You are born, you age, you die. Not the other way around. The arrow of time emerges not from the rules themselves, but from how those rules unfold in the complex, messy theatre of reality. You think of your own life and feel this truth deeply. There are things you cannot go back and change, not because they were wrong, but because they have already happened. The words you said, the moments you let slip away, the choices that led you to this very bed. There is a sweetness and a sadness in this awareness. The broken egg cannot be unbroken, but perhaps it can be turned into something new, a breakfast shared, a lesson remembered, a tenderness born from fragility. The arrow of time doesn't mean you lose everything behind you. It means you carry it forward. It becomes part of the shape you now hold. A river carves a canyon, and though the water flows away, the shape remains. So it is with you. Experiences pass, but their echoes build who you are. Time moves on, but it doesn't erase. It transforms. Even memory obeys this arrow. You cannot remember the future. You can only anticipate it. The brain stores moments in a direction, input, encoding, retrieval. You don't experience your first birthday at 80. You remember backwards. And even those memories are fragile, shifting. They degrade with time, just like the egg on the floor slowly drying into a stain. You can hold a photograph, revisit a song, return to the place, but it will never be the same moment again. Time allows you to revisit, but not to remain. And still, there is comfort here. The arrow of time gives structure to life. You wake, you eat, you love, you grow. Morning follows night. Healing follows wounding. You may not reverse, but you renew. You grow not by circles back, but by circling through days and seasons, through emotions and understanding. The ancient philosophers felt this even without physics. They noticed that time, unlike space, had no symmetry. You can walk backward, retrace your steps, but you cannot unlive an hour. Once it passes, it becomes memory, dream, story. And what strange beauty lives in that one-way passage? A sunset is lovely precisely because it fades. A song reaches you because it ends. Love is sweet because it comes with time, and time always moves on. There is something profoundly human in the way we mark this arrow. We count birthdays, we carve names in trees, we light candles on anniversaries. We write journals and build monuments and make art not to stop time, but to notice it, to honour its passing. We don't try to rewind the egg's fall. We turn its pieces into symbols, into meaning. You breathe slowly now, deep into your belly, feeling that arrow move gently through you. You're not being pushed, you are being carried. Time does not rush, it leads. You follow not blindly, but with awareness. You know that each hour is precious, not because it can be held forever, but because it can't. And still, a question remains. If time always moves forward, if entropy increases, if eggs break and stars die and children grow, then why, deep in your body, does something also circle? Why does your breath rise and fall in cycles, your heart beat in repeating rhythms, your days form loops, your thoughts revisit old paths? Because even as time points forward, even as eggs break and hours fall like petals, something within you resists the idea of straight lines. Something turns back, not to reverse, but to repeat, to trace a curve, to bloom again. And so now you begin to see your body not as a vessel caught in a one-way stream, but as a garden with thousands of clocks hidden in the soil. Here, time does not move with the rigid tick of machinery. It breathes, it pulses, it unfolds in rhythms soft as leaf growth and sleep, and each part of you, each cell, each system, keeps its own tempo, blooms in its own season. Somewhere deep in your bones, time moves slowly. Bone cells or osteocytes live quiet lives of decades. They grow, die, and are replaced so gradually that you scarcely notice. The skeleton you carry now is not the same as the one you had 7 years ago. But you did not feel it change. Bone time is slow time, steady and loyal. Like tree rings or canyon walls, it remembers in layers. Now contrast that with the skin that stretches across your hand. That skin is much younger than you. Every month, its cells die and renew in a hidden choreography. A fingertip touches a railing, brushes against a page, and flakes away cells that barely had time to understand the world. Skin time is fast time, a hummingbird compared to the tortoise bone beneath. And still, both are part of you. Your body is a mosaic of hours, a cathedral of overlapping clocks. Even within one cell, time flows differently depending on purpose. Some genes switch on and off every few hours. Some proteins last only minutes before being dissolved, recycled, rebuilt. Others endure. The timing is not random, it's deeply tuned. Just like in a garden, where lilies bloom for a day and oaks take centuries to stretch upward, your body holds a wisdom of pace, fast for renewal, slow for strength, cyclical for harmony. And then, in the centre of this lush inner landscape, rises a master gardener, the circadian rhythm. A 24-hour cycle woven not by clocks, but by sunlight and molecules. It lives in nearly every living cell from your eyes to your liver, the conductor of your biological orchestra, telling your temperature when to rise, your hunger when to arrive, your melatonin when to drift through blood like twilight perfume. You've felt it before, haven't you? That gentle tug at the same hour each evening, the slow heaviness in your eyelids, the way dawn makes your heart stir faster, even behind closed eyes. It is not habit. It is your cells singing to light. It is your DNA listening to the sky. The garden responds to seasons, to food, to rest. Jet lag is not just weariness. It's a sudden storm across a carefully tended field. The flowers do not know when to open. The bees arrive too early. But give it time, and the rhythm returns. Balance is not erased. It is only delayed. Even your dreams follow cycles. REM sleep, where imagination flies, arrives in predictable waves. 90 minutes between crescendos. Deep sleep at first, lighter later. Like the sun arcing, your mind tilts between shadow and story. Sleep is not absence, it is restoration. A daily blooming of memory, healing, quiet work done beneath consciousness. Your immune system prunes, your mind rakes the leaves of memory, deciding what to compost and what to plant again. In your gut, too, the garden lives. Microbes, tiny tenants, wake and rest in rhythmic shifts. Some feast in the morning, others at night. Their patterns shape your digestion, your mood, even your immunity. These bacterial clocks align with your own, and when disrupted, by stress, by illness, by sleepless nights, the garden grows wild, but it can be restored. A little sunlight, a little stillness, the rhythm remembers. Perhaps this is why nature feels so soothing, because it reminds your inner garden of its native tempo. When you walk through trees or sit near water, your heart slows, your breath deepens, your internal clocks resynchronize with the world. You begin to feel not like something separate from the earth, but like a leaf on its great branch, like one more blossom in its field, and even as time carries you forward, this internal blooming does not resist it. It works with it. You don't have to rewind to begin again. Your body wants to renew, it wants to cycle, to grow back after injury, to soften after tension, to open again after closing. This is the comfort of the garden, that even in decay something prepares to rise. Old leaves fall not as a failure, but as space for new ones. The rhythm makes room. You think of all the times you've changed without noticing, when grief faded slowly into acceptance, when fatigue yielded to morning light, when a hurt became wisdom. These changes didn't rush, they circled, they returned, not in repetition, but in spiral. Forward, yes, but also inward, down to root, up to leaf, again and again. So maybe not all time is a one-way arrow. Maybe within the larger current there are eddies, seasons, spirals. Maybe your body knows that time isn't just a fall, it's a rhythm, a breath, a garden blooming differently in every part all at once. And this thought soothes you deeply, because it means that even if some things cannot return, other things always do. Light, healing, laughter, stillness deepens around you. The pulse in your wrist is slow and sure. Somewhere inside, cells are folding proteins, digesting nutrients, repairing fibers. They do not know what hour it is. They only know what the body whispers. Now. Rest. Bloom again soon. And you wonder, if this rhythm lives in every living thing, does the earth itself have such a garden? Does the planet breathe and sleep and bloom in its own cycles too? And so you lie there in the soft cradle of thought, wondering, not just about your own garden of rhythms, but about the larger one. You wonder if the earth too sleeps and wakes, inhales and exhales in some deep planetary tempo. And then you feel something stir behind your eyes, quiet as breath in a cathedral. An idea, a memory, a whisper of time itself. Not the ticking of seconds or the swell of seasons, but something more intimate, more rooted in you, your sense of before and after, your ability to say this happened, this is happening, This may happen next. And suddenly, the garden opens not in your body, but in your mind. Inside your brain, hidden within the folds of the medial temporal lobe, is a small, seahorse-shaped structure, the hippocampus. It is tender, easily damaged, and yet profoundly powerful. It doesn't beat like the heart or stretch like the lungs. It remembers. It organizes. It gathers the scattered petals of your experience and braids them into meaning. The hippocampus is your inner calendar, your storyteller, your archivist. And unlike a clock, it does not measure minutes. It marks moments. Imagine this part of your brain not as a machine, but as a librarian in a room of dim lamplight and warm shelves. Each shelf holds memories, some sharp, some softened by time. Some are full scenes, the smell of cinnamon in a childhood kitchen, the laughter of someone long gone, the light on a river the summer you first knew stillness. Others are just shadows, a gesture, a fragment of song, the curl of handwriting on an envelope. The hippocampus does not store time the way a watch records it. It stores events, tethered loosely to emotion, place, smell, sound. It weaves time into a story, and as you sleep, this librarian continues her work. During REM sleep, your hippocampus plays back memories from the day, like notes in a rehearsal. But it does not file them as whiz. It edits, arranges, strengthens. Important details become highlighted, repeated. Irrelevant ones fade. New knowledge becomes fused with old. You dream not at random, but because the mind is gardening. It is pruning, fertilizing, and watering the flowers of memory, some just planted, others still blooming from long ago. This is why dreams so often feel both strange and familiar. They are stitched from scraps of your past, spliced with emotion, sewn together by the hand of your subconscious. A door from your childhood house opens into a hallway from last week. A face you saw only once reappears in a crowd. This is not disorder. It is the language of memory. It is your mind gently tending to its calendar, making room for what you might need tomorrow. Your hippocampus also knows how to navigate space, and time is a kind of space, isn't it? The neurons that map your physical surroundings, the ones that fire when you walk through your living room or drive the road to work, also help map when things happened. Where you were when you felt joy, where you stood when grief began. These place cells and time cells don't just help you walk through the world, they help you walk through memory. They place your story into context. Without them, you would lose your way. Not just geographically, but emotionally. And what happens when these systems falter? In aging, in trauma, in certain diseases like Alzheimer's, the hippocampus becomes vulnerable. Time loses its shape. Days blend. Faces feel misplaced. The garden of memory dries at its edges, but even then traces remain. Music from the past can awaken the roots. Familiar scents can reopen pathways long thought lost. This is why a grandmother may forget your name, but hum the lullaby she once sang to you. The calendar is damaged, but not erased. The soul still reaches toward light. You may not often think of time as a sensation, but in truth, your mind feels time passing. It doesn't count it. It recognizes patterns. It marks the rhythm of sunrise and dusk, of weekdays and weekends, of holidays, birthdays, losses. You feel the shift in light as summer leans into fall, and something in you remembers to grow quiet. Your brain is not a stopwatch, it is a tide. Even boredom and urgency are forms of temporal perception. A boring hour stretches, because your brain receives little new input to mark its passing. A joyful hour vanishes, because it is full, rich, saturated with experience. This is why time seems to speed up as you grow older. Childhood is marked by novelty. Everything is new, bright, confusing, wonderful. As those first dwindle, the moments blur. Days collapse into routine. But you can slow time again, not by stopping the clock, but by adding meaning, by noticing, by stepping into presence. And perhaps this is the secret your inner calendar has kept all along. That time is not about keeping up. It is about paying attention. The more closely you attend, the longer and more vibrant the moment becomes. The mind stretches it, paints it in greater detail, returns to it again and again. A single afternoon of connection, truly seen, can last a lifetime in the garden of memory. Tonight, as you lie quiet, perhaps some part of your mind is wandering through the shelves. It passes a memory without speaking. It brushes dust from a day you forgot you cherished. Maybe it rewinds to a moment you once wished away, now softened by kindness. The calendar doesn't judge. It holds it all. And as sleep deepens, the librarian sets down her book, content with what has been kept, and gently turns her gaze toward the dim horizon of what might be. And still, the question stirs in you like a breeze through curtains. If your mind builds calendars from memory, and your body keeps time through rhythm, what happens in those moments when time seems to change, when a second becomes a lifetime, when fear stretches a minute into an eternity? So the question presses softly at the edge of sleep. If your brain builds a sense of time from rhythm, memory and meaning, what then causes those moments when time seems to break apart, to bend, to stretch, to become strange? You know these moments. You have lived them. You felt them pulse through you like thunder, those instants of sudden panic, shock or danger when everything seems to happen in a prolonged hush. When you can see the fall of a glass in slow motion, feel your heartbeat echo like a drum in a cave, hear your name called from far away, though it's shouted right beside you. Time suddenly becomes viscous. You're suspended in it. This phenomenon isn't illusion, it's perception. A change in your awareness so sharp and urgent that it feels like time itself is bending, slowing down to let you react, to let you survive. Your body, ancient and wise, knows how to do this. It does it without your permission, without your conscious thought. In the presence of sudden fear or overwhelming emotion, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, the body's internal alarm bell. Adrenaline floods your bloodstream like wildfire. Your pupils widen to take in more light, more detail. Your heart accelerates, forcing blood into your muscles, readying you for escape or defense. And most importantly, your brain begins to process more information faster. The amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for detecting threats, jolts into hyperfocus. It begins to tag sensations with vivid importance. Every crack in the floor, every colour, every tremble of sound is amplified and etched more deeply. Time does not actually slow. The world continues at its pace. But you experience more within each second. Your perception expands, so the moment stretches. The event feels longer because more was noticed, more was remembered. It is a survival trick honed by evolution. In dangerous situations, you don't need smooth storytelling. You need detail. You need intensity. So your brain unspools the moment like a frame-by-frame reel. Later, when the moment has passed, the memory of it feels unusually dense. That second of falling, that glimpse of headlights, that child slipping from your grasp, it lingers. You replay it because it was longer in your experience. The mind made space for it. It unfolded wide and slow so that you might live through it. And yet, time doesn't only slow in terror. Sometimes in deep joy or awe, time stretches too, but differently. Not with urgency, but with fullness. The first time you stood before the sea, the instant you saw a loved one's face after absence, the pause before a kiss. These moments don't panic the brain. They awaken it. And still, the seconds bloom. You are pulled so fully into the now that the moment deepens, like water becoming suddenly still and clear. Time doesn't move faster or slower, it simply opens. This kind of temporal dilation speaks of presence. It happens when your awareness saturates the now so completely that the concept of before and after seems far away. In meditation, in music, in grief, in gratitude, you feel it. Time becomes not something you move through, but something you're inside of. Not like walking a path, but like stepping into a cathedral of feeling. But fear's version is sharper. It cuts. It slices seconds into fragments and makes you examine them. It is why people who have survived traumatic events often describe vivid, slow-motion details. The way a shadow fell across the wall, the exact pitch of a siren, the feeling of dust on skin. It is not exaggeration, it is encoding. The brain uses high-definition tape in moments that might mean life or death. Later, though, that vividness lingers, and sometimes it haunts. Not all memories return gently. Some burst back too loud, too bright, too now. Post-traumatic stress disorder is, in a way, a disorder of time. The past does not stay past. The inner clock loses its directional arrow, and the body feels as though the danger is still unfolding. This is not weakness. It is a misfired protection. The brain believes the moment matters so deeply that it refuses to release it. But healing, too, is a form of time perception. It is the gradual return of the now, the reshaping of memory's sharp edge into something livable. Therapy, love, rest. These things recalibrate your inner timekeeper. They bring the moment back into proportion. The heartbeat slows, the breath evens. The world resumes its natural tempo. You no longer feel suspended in the moment. You feel carried again, softly forward. And what does this mean in the quiet hours? It means that even as you drift here, half asleep and wrapped in night's hush, your perception of time is yours to shape, not by control, but by attention, by presence, by grace. You cannot stop time, but you can inhabit it more fully. You can breathe into it. You can let go of the rush and soften into each moment until it stretches, not in fear, but in stillness. You think now of all the seconds that once felt endless, waiting for results, hearing bad news, saying goodbye. And then you think of the seconds you never wanted to end, the ones filled with music, laughter, hands held in silence. They were equal in length, but not in experience. Time does not care, but you do. Your body marks time, your soul feels it, and somewhere in that awareness is a strange kind of peace, because it means that the ticking clock is not the master. You're not bound only by the calendar, the deadline, the race. You're also shaped by the way you meet time, whether you greet it with fear, with awe, or with quiet trust. Now your breath is steady. The room holds its soft darkness around you like fabric. Your heartbeat is no longer racing. It is calm, like footsteps echoing down a long hall. You feel the body's grip on time loosening, not breaking but yielding. And still, a question lingers on the edge of your thoughts, curling like vapor. If time can bend with perception, if fear can stretch a second and love can dissolve an hour, Then what happens when time itself begins to warp beneath the weight of speed, light, and gravity? And so you find yourself resting in that final question, delicate as gossamer. What happens when time itself begins to warp? Not from emotion, not from memory, but from the very nature of space and speed. You lie there beneath the folds of night, but your thoughts now stretch far beyond the room, past your body, past the earth, into the velvet ocean of the cosmos, where time does not always behave as you expect. Out there, among the stars and curving gravity wells, time is a whisper, and sometimes it whispers differently. You've heard of it before, perhaps in passing. The idea that time is not fixed, that it flows differently depending on where you are, how fast you're moving, or what immense body you're near. Einstein first spoke it softly into the world over a century ago, and it changed everything. His theory of relativity suggested that time is not universal, not absolute, but flexible, elastic, a fabric that stretches and folds. And once you understand this, you can never unknow it. You begin to see time not as a rhythm outside you, but as a geometry, as a shape drawn by gravity. Imagine two twins. One remains on Earth, growing older year by year, reading books, planting gardens, growing grey. The other boards a spacecraft and travels near the speed of light for what feels like only a few months. When they return, the twin on Earth has aged. Years have passed. But for the travelling twin, time passed more slowly. This is not fantasy. It is measurable. It is real. It is time dilation, written not in dreams, but in equations, in the motion of particles, in the ticking of atomic clocks. Even satellites that orbit above you now, those small machines that let your phone know where you are, have to correct for relativity. Because they move fast and are farther from Earth's gravitational pull, time ticks differently for them. Not by much, just microseconds. But microseconds matter. Without that correction, GPS would drift, placing you miles from where you stand. So engineers program time's bend into the machines. We no longer just know that time is relative. We use it. But why does gravity bend time? Close your eyes and picture space-time as a soft stretched sheet. Every object with mass, Earth, the Sun, even you, makes a dent in that sheet. The more massive the object, the deeper the dent. Time flows through this sheet like water, but when it encounters these dents, especially deep ones near massive objects like black holes, it slows. It curves. Time gets caught in the well of gravity. If you could drift near a black hole, not too close, but just near its edge, you would see something astonishing. The universe would appear to speed up around you. Distant stars would spin faster, light would stretch, red shifting into longer wavelengths. You would feel like you were moving normally, breathing normally, but to an outside observer, you would seem to be slowing, as if sinking into molasses. If you tried to call out to them, your voice would arrive more slowly, distorted, as if time itself were stretching your words. This is not a trick, this is not an illusion. Time near a black hole actually moves more slowly. 1 minute there could equal years elsewhere. And somewhere deep inside you, that idea changes everything, because it means there is no single now shared across the universe. Each person, each place, each gravity field has its own rhythm. Time becomes local, personal, relative. You think of whispers, how they stretch across space slower than shouts. A whisper takes longer to reach the ear, not because it moves slowly, but because it's delicate, bending with the air. In the same way, time near gravity's deep wells becomes soft, hesitant. It stretches out. hesitates at the edge of collapse, the nearer you go to immense mass, the slower your clock ticks. And so in that silence, you imagine being a whisper yourself, floating near some distant star, your seconds widening, the universe unfolding like a slow waltz. And perhaps the most poetic truth is this: you are already living inside this relativity. On Earth, your feet are slightly closer to the center of gravity than your head. That means the atoms in your feet experience time ever so slightly slower than those in your scalp. The difference is microscopic, but it exists. Your body is a vertical clock, ticking in gradients. Time is not even uniform inside your own skin. This changes how you think of life, of stories, of memories, because now you understand that time is not a river flowing the same for everyone. It's a network of countless streams, some fast, some slow, some bending around stones you cannot see. It means that every being is experiencing a slightly different version of the universe. And still, we find ways to meet, to speak, to share seconds. Even now, your breath is slower. Your thoughts are quieter. You feel yourself becoming more aware of how time moves through you. You remember moments that felt like years that vanished in moments. The physics only confirms what your heart already knew. Time is not rigid. It stretches with emotion, with space, with speed. And then you wonder, if time can slow near gravity, what happens at the center of it all? What happens inside a black hole, where the laws collapse, where time itself might stop? Is there a place where time ends? Or does it simply become something else? You lie there, still drifting on the edge of that last question, wondering what happens in the deepest wells of gravity, in the silence inside a black hole where time may slow to a hush or stop altogether. But before you follow that thought too far into the dark, something gentler draws you upward. Your gaze lifts, not inward, but skyward. You rise above the pull of Earth and float quietly into orbit, where the answers may not be so final, but are more familiar, more human-scaled. Because above your head, circling the planet, are the clocks we built to measure time, not in theory but in practice, and they do not behave quite like the ones in your pocket. They're up there now, satellites, shining silver machines that ride the invisible threads of gravity's dance around the Earth. To your eyes from the ground, they're just stars that move too quickly, crossing the night like quiet punctuation. But each one carries a clock, atomic, precise, measuring time, not by ticking gears, but by the vibrations of cesium or rubidium atoms. These atoms oscillate at exact frequencies, making them among the most reliable timekeepers we've ever known. And yet, even they do not escape relativity. Each satellite orbits about 20,000 kilometers above you. That means it's farther from the center of Earth's gravitational pull, and because of that, because gravity is slightly weaker up there, time runs a little faster for those clocks than it does for you standing on the ground. Just a tiny bit, about 45 microseconds faster per day. That may sound like nothing, a fraction of a blink. But in the world of navigation, it is enormous. GPS, the system you use to find a street, to locate a signal, to track your steps on a walk, is built on triangulating your position from these satellites. It works only because the clocks on those satellites are synchronized with one another and with the ground stations on Earth. If the time difference due to gravity's dilation were ignored, your location would drift by miles every day. The map would not match the street. Reality would slip. But the engineers knew. They knew that time in orbit would not be the same. They factored in Einstein's equations. They built relativity into our machines, and so your phone, right now, is using satellites circling overhead, each whispering back time that has already been gently stretched by distance and speed. And yet, it still tells you here, still tells you now. There's something deeply poetic in that. The idea that the sky is full of clocks, and each of them measures time differently depending on its place and motion. Some move faster because they are farther out. Some lag slightly because they're rushing through space at great speeds. The International Space Station, closer to Earth but moving faster, experiences both effects. Time slows due to speed, and speeds up due to weaker gravity, with one outweighing the other. Astronauts aboard the ISS age just a tiny bit slower than those on Earth. Not enough to notice, but enough to measure. And it's not just satellites. Our entire understanding of time has begun to depend on how we measure it from above. In Boulder, Colorado, and in laboratories around the world, scientists are building clocks so precise they can detect time passing slightly faster if the clock is raised by a few centimeters, just by lifting it higher above Earth's surface, farther from the center of mass. Time changes with altitude. Your head ages ever so slightly faster than your feet. You wonder then how tall mountains might experience the day, how the summit of Everest, cradled closer to the stars, ticks just a breath more quickly than sea level, how a bird in flight may experience time differently from the worm below. The differences are small, yes, but real. Time is not a constant tide washing over all things equally. It moves through valleys and peaks like mist, thinner in some places, heavier in others, and still it connects us. The clocks in the sky allow trains to run on time, stock markets to synchronize, airplanes to land. They allow lovers in different cities to speak at the same hour. They allow a grandmother to send a message that says, "Good morning," and for it to arrive in the morning, even across the curvature of the earth. We're not only creatures of memory, but of coordination. Time makes shared experience possible. Even if it bends slightly, it holds us together. And yet, for all their precision, these sky clocks are not immune to the poetry of space. They must be constantly corrected, adjusted, recalibrated. Not because they are broken, but because the universe refuses to be simple. Because time, while measurable, is not tame. Even the best machines must bow to gravity, to motion, to light, and so they drift, just slightly, and we pull them back into sync. There's comfort in that, isn't there? The idea that time, even as it dances with relativity, is still something we can touch, something we can follow, not perfectly but closely enough. You, lying here, wrapped in quiet, are connected by invisible signal to those machines above you. Their clocks hum in orbit, their signals arrive slightly shifted, and still you know what hour it is. Still you wake, eat, speak, dream on time. But now you wonder, if time bends above us and speeds up far from gravity's pull, what happens over longer distances? What happens when the light from distant stars must travel for billions of years to reach us, carrying the time of long-dead galaxies? If time flows differently depending on where you are, then what is now across the cosmos? Do stars in other galaxies share the same moment as you, or are they already past, or still to come? If the clocks in the sky are running slightly ahead, gently pulled forward by their altitude and speed, then what about those that do not tick? What about the oldest clocks, the ones buried in darkness, under mountains, beneath oceans, deep within the skin of the earth itself? You feel the pull of this question as you lie still, your body gently rising and falling with breath, your mind floating downward now, not into orbit, but into stone, into silence, into deep time. Unlike the precision hum of satellites or the rush of adrenaline in a moment of fear, deep time does not call attention to itself. It has no sound. It leaves no immediate mark. It unfolds not in seconds or hours, but in epochs. You cannot feel it passing because it does not concern itself with heartbeats. It does not measure days. It marks its passage in pressure, in sediment, in the slow folding of mountains. Now picture yourself walking into a canyon. The air is warm and still, and the stone walls rise like quiet sentinels on either side. You run your hand along the layered rock and feel a softness not of texture, but of patience. Each stripe, each band of colour is a chapter, deposited slowly over thousands, sometimes millions of years. Sand compressed into stone, silt laid down by vanished rivers, volcanic ash cooled into pale veils. These are not marks of time passing quickly. These are the pauses, the accumulations, the deep breathing of a planet that spins beneath the rushing clock of humanity. In geology, time is measured in unimaginable spans. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old, a number so vast it begins to feel imaginary. But it is not. It is carved into cliffs, pressed into fossil beds, etched in the decay of isotopes. Scientists use radiometric dating to read these ancient records, measuring the half-lives of uranium, thorium, carbon, elements that change slowly, predictably, reliably. The atoms in these rocks are timekeepers too, but their clocks are slow, patient, eternal compared to your own. A single granite boulder may have cooled from magma before the first tree ever stood. A fossilized trilobite might have lived and died in an ocean that no longer exists. To them, your life is a blink, a dream. But still, they hold the history that made your life possible. The rise of oxygen, the layering of soil, the shaping of continents. The earth did not rush to create you. It took its time. There's something humbling in that, something sacred, because for all your days, all your hours and minutes, your schedule and your memory, you're standing on something ancient. Every step you take walks across a story older than language. Even the bones inside you, rich with calcium, come from stone, broken down, absorbed by roots, eaten by animals, cycled through the food chain, drawn up into your body as structure, memory, motion. You are a product of geologic time. You carry it unknowingly in every cell. And deep time is not only in rocks, it's in ice. In the miles-thick glaciers of Antarctica and Greenland, there are air bubbles trapped like tiny ghosts of ancient skies. Scientists drill down into them, extracting cylinders of layered snow and ice, each stratum a frozen page. These ice cores contain records of atmosphere and temperature that stretch back hundreds of thousands of years. They show how the Earth breathed in heat, exhaled it in cold, and held its balance through trembling cycles. When you look at those cores, you're looking into time itself, not through vision, but through composition. And deep time lives in coral reefs, tree rings, cave crystals, and even the layers of sediment in the bottom of lakes. Time is recorded not only in clocks and calendars, but in structure, in the slow, unconscious shape of things. And perhaps that is the most astonishing thing. Deep time doesn't rush, but it builds. Over millions of years, it raises mountain ranges from seabeds. It turns forests into coal. It allows oceans to vanish and reappear. It does not forget. It simply waits. In deep time, there is no now as you know it. No beginning, no end, just movement so slow it appears still. But what does deep time mean to you, here, tonight, in this human moment wrapped in breath and thought? It means this, that your life, while brief, is part of something vast, that you're not separate from the stone you walk upon, the cliff you admire, the sand between your fingers. Your timeline threads through the layers. Your story is short, but it is set within the oldest library in existence, and in a way, it is reassuring. Because even if your day felt too quick, even if the hours rushed by, even if you forgot something or lost something, deep time remains. It is the heartbeat of the earth, slower than your own, but steady, and you can touch it, simply by noticing the shape of a shell, the quiet of a canyon, the softness of worn stone. So you rest now, with this awareness rooted beneath you like bedrock. The clock on the wall ticks forward, the night deepens, but under your body, under your house, under the cities and rivers and forests, the earth continues its slow unfolding. Layers are still forming, pressure is still building. The silence of rocks is not absence, it is time held differently. And as you begin to slip deeper into sleep, into a softer kind of time, you wonder something you've never asked before. If deep time flows so slowly it feels still, then what does that say about the moment we call now? Is it a sliver between vast geological breaths? Or is it something we invent to hold on to meaning? You lie still in the soft quiet of night, pondering the vastness of deep time and the slow breath of rocks beneath you. And then, like a gentle ripple across a still pond, a new question emerges. What is now? That tiny flickering moment that slips so quickly between past and future. You feel it on your tongue, on your skin, the elusive present, the heartbeat between what was and what will be. And yet, what if now is less a fixed point and more a delicate illusion? Think of your own experience. Even as you become aware of the present, it has already passed. Your mind processes sights and sounds with a slight delay, fractions of a second, barely noticeable, because signals must travel through nerves and synapses, then be woven into consciousness. The now you perceive is already a memory, an echo of the immediate past, and yet you feel it as real, as sharp and solid as the bed beneath you. Philosophers and scientists have long debated this fleeting now. Some say it does not exist as an instant, but as a short duration, a window where perception blends past and future. This window, called the specious present, is like the frame of a film reel, holding several moments together so that your mind can make sense of motion and change. Without it, experience would be disjointed, fragmented. Time would be a series of still images, not a flowing river. Your brain stitches together these moments seamlessly, hiding the gaps, crafting a continuous sense of presence. But what you feel as now is more like a bridge, connecting what has just slipped away with what is just about to arrive. It is a span, not a point. This might explain why moments sometimes feel thick, like a heavy breath, or thin, like a blink. The present is elastic, shaped by attention and emotion. You notice perhaps how when you're fully absorbed, lost in a book or in conversation or in nature, the now stretches, expands. Time slows because your brain holds more detail within that window. And when you are distracted, overwhelmed or anxious, the now fragments, breaking into smaller pieces that slip through fingers like fine sand. This insight reframes your experience. Now is not just a fleeting point on a timeline. It is an act of creation, a dance your brain performs, folding moments together so that you can be aware of existence. It is not given, it is built. And in that building, there is power, because it means you can influence the shape of your present by slowing down, by focusing, by breathing deeply. You can widen your window of now. You can enter a fuller, richer presence, where time feels less like a rush and more like a garden blooming in light. But there is more. Science reveals that now is not universal, not the same for everyone, not the same across space. The speed of light, the limits of perception, and the vastness of the cosmos mean that each observer has a unique present. For a star billions of light years away, now happened long before you were born. For an astronaut moving near light speed, now differs from that on Earth. The universe is a quilt of individual nows, stitched imperfectly into what we call reality. And here, resting in your bed, you become aware of this truth. Your now is uniquely yours. It is shaped by your body's rhythms, your mind's focus, your heart's beat. It is tender and personal, fragile and powerful. It is the place where all your experience gathers, where memory meets possibility. The illusion, then, is not that now is real. It is that it is singular. It is that it is fixed. Instead, it flows, it bends, it multiplies. Now is a soft candle flickering in the vast darkness of time, casting shadows and light, shaping meaning from moments passing. And as you begin to sink deeper into sleep, you realize something profound. That now is not something you wait for. It is something you carry with you in every breath, every heartbeat, every whisper of awareness. It is the soft thread weaving the tapestry of your life. With that thought, the edges of consciousness blur, the rhythm of breath slows, the heartbeat softens, and the world folds gently away. You are carried not into the future, not into the past, but into the endless unfolding of moments, each one a new beginning, a new presence, a new now. And as you drift, a new mystery unfolds quietly, inviting you forward. If now is an act of creation, then what shapes the rhythm of this creation? What invisible conductor guides the beat of your inner clock? You drift deeper into that lingering question. If now is an act of creation, if time flows softly through your breath and awareness, then what sets its rhythm? What unseen hand guides the beat of your inner clock? And then, as your thoughts wander beyond yourself, you feel the gentle pull of another world, one rooted in earth and sky, in green leaves and quiet nights, in something older than your breath, the ticking of plants and the dance of moonlight clocks. Because life itself, even the silent life around you, follows a pulse. A clock built not of gears or atoms, but of molecules and light. You may not notice it in the stillness of your room, but outside, plants awaken and sleep to their own rhythms. They follow a dance as precise and ancient as the stars. This rhythm is called the circadian clock, a molecular mechanism embedded deep in the cells of almost every living thing, from tiny algae to mighty trees, and yes, to you. Imagine a sunflower, its golden face turning slowly to track the sun's journey across the sky. But this movement is more than a passive following of light. It is living clockwork, ticking within its cells, anticipating dawn even before the first ray appears. Proteins switch on and off in cycles of about 24 hours, turning genes into actions and actions back into rest. Leaves open, stomata breathe, chemicals surge and ebb, all orchestrated by this inner timekeeper. And when night falls, the story continues. Plants do not simply go dormant, they adjust. They prepare for the dark hours, conserving energy, repairing tissues, and resetting for the next sunrise. Some flowers close their petals, some trees shift their sap flow. The moonlight itself can influence this dance, its subtle glow affecting gene expression, nudging rhythms ever so slightly. The night is not empty. It is alive with quiet clocks ticking in shadow. In forests where moonlight filters through leaves, you might imagine a hidden symphony. Each plant a musician, its molecular gears turning in time with celestial cycles. And just as you feel the pull of sleep, these plants feel their own call, to rest, to heal, to prepare for the sun's return. The pulse of life is universal, yet endlessly varied, adapting to light, temperature, season, and place. What amazes scientists is that these clocks are both incredibly robust and exquisitely sensitive. They keep time even in constant darkness, maintaining a steady beat, yet they can shift, reset, synchronize with the changing world. This balance allows plants to survive and thrive through the shifting patterns of day and night, of summer and winter. And here's a thought that settles gently in your mind. You carry this clock too. Within your cells, similar molecular mechanisms pulse in cycles of sleep and wake, hormone release, body temperature, and metabolism. Your circadian rhythm is your own moonlight clock, set by sunlight and by the quiet dark. It governs the ebb and flow of your energy, the timing of your dreams, the dance of your cells' renewal. When you wake in the morning, sunlight hitting your retina sends signals to the master clock in your brain, called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This tiny bundle of cells near the optic nerve adjusts your rhythms to the world outside, setting the pace for all your inner clocks. And when night falls, melatonin rises, a soft silvery hormone that whispers to your body that it is time to slow, to rest, to heal. You feel connected then to the pulse of the earth and sky. Your breathing aligns, perhaps unknowingly, with this rhythm. When you walk in the early morning or rest beneath moonlight, your body may be synchronizing with ancient clocks that predate humans, clocks that set the tempo for forests and oceans, for fungi and flowers. This awareness brings a soothing thought. Time is not only something measured in seconds or hours, but something lived and shared. Your inner clock ticks in harmony with the moonlight's silver fingers and the sunflower's golden face. You're part of a grand choreography, a timeless garden where every creature moves to the pulse of the universe's vast heartbeat. And as your breath deepens, you feel the pulse steady within you, a steady drum beneath the rush of thought. The molecular gears turn in your cells, whispering rhythms that guide you into rest. The clockwork is winding down for now, not stopped, but slowed into the night's quiet flow. And as you drift towards sleep, the question unfolds softly before you. If plants and moonlight hold such ancient clocks, what other hidden rhythms pulse through the living world, unseen but felt? What other dances of time surround you, inviting you to slow, to listen, to become part of their silent song? You rest now in the gentle cadence of moonlight clocks and ticking plants. Your breath slow and steady, but your mind begins to drift once more, this time toward the vast breathing blue that covers most of your world, the ocean. Here lies another rhythm, ancient and unyielding, shaped by the moon's pull and the spinning earth. The ocean's pulse is endless, a steady rise and fall, a heartbeat that has echoed for millions of years. And as you imagine it, you feel yourself drawn into its flow, not as a distant observer but as part of the great watery dance. The ocean's tides are the most visible expression of this pulse. Twice each day, the sea swells and recedes, pushed and pulled by the invisible fingers of the moon's gravity. You felt this motion, walking along the shore watching waves crash and retreat. But behind this surface movement lies a clockwork as precise and grand as the machinery in the sky. The tides are a conversation between earth, moon, and sun, a celestial dance that marks time on a scale both human and cosmic. But tides are only part of the ocean's rhythm. Beneath the waves, currents flow in vast, slow rivers, carrying heat, nutrients, and life across the globe. The Gulf Stream warms the shores of distant lands. The deep conveyor belt of cold water circles the planet, cycling oxygen and carbon through unseen depths. These currents are timekeepers too, moving steadily over years and centuries, shaping climate, ecosystems, and the very conditions for life on Earth. Within this immense watery world, countless creatures also keep time in their own ways. Consider the coral reefs, living cities built by tiny organisms that grow and renew with the seasons, responding to changes in temperature, light, and food. Corals open their polyps to feed as the sun rises, closing them at dusk, a daily dance dictated by the circadian rhythm of light and dark. Some reefs even follow lunar cycles, spawning in grand, synchronized events tied to the phases of the moon. Deep in the ocean's shadowed depths, bioluminescent creatures pulse with rhythms of their own, flashing lights that blink and fade in steady beats, signaling across darkness. Their timing is a secret language, a conversation in light, synchronized and alive. These rhythms have evolved over millions of years, attuned to the slow, persistent heartbeat of the sea. As you imagine the ocean's endless pulse, you feel a connection not just to the water, but to the cycles within your own body. Your heartbeat, after all, is a tide, a rise and fall of blood and life. Your lungs fill and empty, a quiet swell. Your sleep cycles follow rhythms as natural as the lunar phases. Your very cells respond to the ebb and flow of hormones and light, as if dancing to the ocean's ancient song. There's a reason why so many find peace by the sea. The ocean's pulse reminds us of time's breadth, how moments are nested within cycles, how life itself is a flow within a flow. The steady rhythm of waves lapping the shore is a meditation, a lullaby, a reminder that time is both vast and intimate. It carries you forward, but also holds you gently. You feel your breath deepen further, matching the slow, rhythmic rise and fall of the tide. Your mind softens, thoughts untangle, and you sense a larger pattern, a harmony between your inner clocks and the vast, watery pulse of the earth. You're not separate from this rhythm. You are a note in its endless song. And as sleep begins to take you fully, you wonder, if the ocean moves in cycles both seen and unseen, what other rhythms of the natural world pulse quietly around you? Rhythms waiting to be felt, understood, and woven into your own experience of time. You drift gently from the ocean's endless pulse into the vast cathedral of the night sky, where stars pulse with secrets older than any earthbound clock. Above you, a canopy of twinkling lights stretches beyond measure, a symphony of distant suns, each beating to rhythms both mysterious and majestic. Their light travels through space and time, whispering stories of creation, endurance, and cosmic dance. And as you lie beneath this glittering dome, you begin to sense the secret rhythm that guides the stars themselves. Stars are not fixed points of light. but living entities in motion. They spin, they pulsate, they breathe. Some flicker with regularity, expanding and contracting in cycles that last from minutes to days. These are called variable stars, celestial metronomes beating in the dark. Their brightness waxes and wanes, signaling rhythms deep within, fusion processes, gravitational shifts, and magnetic dances unseen by the naked eye. To an astronomer, they are clocks, markers of distance and time across the vast universe. Consider the Cepheid variables, whose pulsations helped us measure the scale of galaxies. Their steady throb, like a heartbeat in the cosmic dark, became a ruler for astronomers to map the universe. Or the mysterious neutron stars, ultra-dense remnants of exploded giants that spin so rapidly they pulse radio waves in clockwork precision. These cosmic lighthouses remind you that time's rhythm echoes not only in your breath or the ocean's tide, but in the very fabric of the cosmos. And yet, this star's rhythm is shaped by gravity and light speed limits, warping time as they dance in binary pairs or swirl in galaxies. The movement of star clusters and the rotation of galaxies take place over millions or billions of years, rhythms so slow that to the human eye the stars seem eternal and still. But your mind, trained by the journey through time's layers, knows better. The stars are alive with movement, their slow dance a vast and silent symphony. You feel a kinship here. The stars' pulses are both distant and intimate, cosmic and personal. Their rhythms resonate with the rhythms within your own body, the beat of your heart, the cycle of your sleep, the pulse of your thoughts. You are connected by these pulses, by the universal dance of time and energy. The night sky also holds cycles of its own, the phases of the moon, waxing and waning in a steady cadence, the slow procession of planets tracing arcs through constellations, the passing of seasons as Earth orbits the sun. These cycles have guided human life for millennia, dictating planting and harvest, guiding navigation, inspiring stories and rituals. Time measured by the stars is time intertwined with life, survival, and meaning. You think now of ancient peoples who looked up at this sky and saw not distant suns but clocks and calendars written in light. They marked the solstices with stone circles, predicted eclipses with patient observation, used the stars to chart journeys across deserts and oceans. Their time was cosmic time, a time both vast and immediate, woven into the fabric of daily life. And in that legacy, you feel yourself part of a long chain of observers, dreamers, scientists, stargazers, who measured time not just by ticking seconds, but by watching the steady pulse of the universe itself. Tonight, as your breathing slows and your mind softens, you imagine that pulse gently echoing within you. The slow expansion and contraction of distant stars mirrored in the steady beat of your own heart. The cosmic dance held close, a quiet rhythm guiding you into rest. And as sleep enfolds you completely, the final whisper floats softly to your ears. Time is not just what you measure or perceive, it is what you become. A pulse in the endless rhythm of stars, oceans, plants, and dreams. You are cradled now in the gentle darkness between wakefulness and dreams, sinking slowly into the soft eternity of sleep. Here, time feels different, not ticking forward in measured steps, nor stretching like a river, but folding and unfolding in quiet waves. It is a place without urgency, without linear progression, a place where moments blend and dissolve, where past and future meet in the tenderness of now. As your body relaxes deeper, your brain begins a journey through states both familiar and strange. In sleep, time is neither lost nor held, it is transformed. Your neural rhythms shift, creating cycles of REM and non-REM sleep, each with its own pulse and pace. In these cycles, memories consolidate and emotions heal. The mind prunes and nurtures, weaving the fragments of your day into the tapestry of your life. Dreams arrive like whispers from a hidden garden, spaces where time bends and loops. In dreams, you may walk through moments that stretch or collapse, where seconds can feel like lifetimes and lifetimes like seconds. They are the mind's way of playing with time, of exploring the folds and echoes of your inner world. They remind you that time is not just external, measured by clocks or planets, but also internal, shaped by perception, emotion, and memory. The soft eternity of sleep is a refuge, a place where the hard edges of time smooth out. Your breathing deepens, your heartbeat slows, and the boundary between self and world blurs. In this state, you are not captive to the relentless march of seconds, but part of a fluid rhythm, a rhythm that ebbs and flows with the tides of your consciousness. Science tells us that sleep is vital for life, not just for rest, but for renewal. It is the body's way of synchronizing with the planet's rhythms, a nightly return to the ancient cycles that have governed all living things. Sleep allows you to align your inner clocks, to recalibrate your sense of time and space, to prepare for the next day's journey. And so, in this soft eternity, time feels less like a taskmaster and more like a gentle companion. It does not rush you or demand attention. Instead, it invites you to surrender, to trust, to flow, to become the pulse itself, the rise and fall of breath, the quiet beating of the heart, the slow unfolding of dreams. As your thoughts dissolve, your body sinks deeper and the world outside grows faint.